Audio Jungle.
Let me clear a few things first. One, about my Nigerian antecedents. My stepmother is Nigerian, who raised me, and she comes from Offa in Kwara State. And so, what Kayode was explaining was that at a point in time when there had been a coup in Ghana, my father lived in exile here in Nigeria, and I had to come and stay with my stepmother for many years in Offa. So I know Offa quite well. And I consider that my hometown here in Nigeria. And the Olofa of Offa was very gracious to grant me a chieftaincy title. And so for those of you who don't know, I'm the Are Atolashe of Offa Kingdom. And he told a story about our intervention in Gambia when there had been an election, and we had a few issues getting the then head of state, Yahya Jammeh, to accept the results of the election. There was a funny incident. We had gone to intervene with Salif Johnson, Macky Sall, President Jonathan was part of it at the time, and Ibn Chambers. And we met the president, and we met the opposition leader who had won the election, and he talked about how he had been placed under house arrest. And so when we met the president, we tried to convince him to release him from house arrest. And he says, I know the international community. If anything touches the skin of this man, you say I murdered him. And so I'm protecting him for his own safety. And I said, but Mr. President, I thought that if you wanted to protect him, any danger to him will come from outside his house, not from inside. He says, yes, why? I said, but the guns that are protecting him are pointing at the house instead of away from the house. And happily, eventually, we got democracy reinstated in the Gambia. Let me warn you too, there's no quotation from Christopher Sapara Williams in this speech. I heard so many quotes from him. He must have been such a great legal luminary. It is with profound gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility that I stand before you today as a special guest at this annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association. Your invitation to address this distinguished gathering is not just an honor for me, but a recognition of the crucial role the legal profession plays in shaping the future of our beloved continent. Your invitation is also historic. In my nearly 30 years of public service, this is the first time I've been invited to a bar conference. I was genuinely surprised when I received your invitation. Thank you, Nigerian Bar Association. I was genuinely surprised when I received your invitation, as I had always believed that bar conferences were exclusive events for only members of the legal profession. I thoroughly enjoyed the opening ceremony yesterday, and your keynote speaker, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, a distinguished daughter of Africa, truly did justice to the conference team. I've been asked to speak for a few minutes on the topic, the future of Africa in the midst of rising security, economic, and political challenges. And as a student of history, I like to begin my lecture with some historical context. Following the Second World War, a combination of factors sparked the struggle for independence in Africa. Soldiers returning from war that had little to do with them, and African students who had become radicalized by the ideas of Pan-Africanism and the American Civil Rights Movement became catalysts for the independent movements, particularly in my country, Ghana. By 1957, Ghana emerged as the first country south of the Sahara to gain independence, and thereby paving the way for several other African countries, including Nigeria, to follow suit. Emerging from colonial rule was an exhilarating experience, and it was a hopeful time for Africans who look forward to a future of building great nations that would ensure dignity and prosperity for all their people. That dream was short-lived. By the late 60s into the 70s, most African governments had fallen under military autocratic rule. Human rights were routinely violated, and free expression and an independent media were aspirations that seemed reserved for future democracies. This period in African history, which I refer to as the lost decades, was marked by stagnating economies and oppressive military regimes. The few attempts to return to civilian rule were short-lived, and the military always quickly returned to power. The 1990s signaled a new dawn for Africa. One by one, African countries began returning to constitutional democracy. It was widely believed that democracy would not only protect the rights and freedoms of the people, but it would also unleash their creative potential to build prosperous lives. Once again, there was hope. At one point, 6 of the world's fastest growing economies were in Africa, reigniting our belief in a prosperous future for the continent. Fast forward more than 2 decades, and Africa finds itself at a critical juncture. The neo-colonial stranglehold continues to choke the continent, while democratic governance has undoubtedly led to some commendable progress in infrastructure and the emergence of an affluent middle class. Africa remains largely an exporter of raw materials and a consumer of finished goods. Per capita incomes remain low compared to many countries with which Africa was on a par at the time of independence. Time is running out to make the crucial decisions that will once again inspire hope in the future of our democratic governance. Let me share a few examples from my own country, Ghana. According to the latest Afrobarometer survey, an overwhelming 87% of Ghanaians believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. Additionally, 85% of Ghanaians rate the country's economy as bad, while 72% describe their personal living conditions from fairly bad to bad. Now, this is where it gets interesting. About 55% of Ghanaians say they have lost trust in our parliament. 53% have lost trust in the presidency. Moreover, 73% believe that government is not doing enough to fight corruption. And 64% feel that government is failing to improve the economy. Another revealing statistic is that 22% of Ghanaians agree that the country will be better off under military rule. These figures indicate a significant decline in trust in democratic governance in Ghana, which should serve as a wake-up call for all of us. While I'm not certain of the most recent statistics for Nigeria, given that our two countries are often called Siamese twins from the same mother, and we're always competing over football and jollof, our countries are so similar that I believe that the sentiments expressed in Ghana might be very similar to the sentiments that you have here.
Audio Jungle.